Okay, there it is. Hello, welcome to Coming Out with Cannabis. Today we're talking to Kristin Heidelbach-Teramoto, Teamsters representative and director of the Cannabis Division. But first, CP!
This is my favorite part, by the way.
I'm working on it. I'm going to get the call out together, but go ahead.
I love this.
Great to
this.
Perfect.
So I've been smiling so much as we've been talking because, of course, to all of our viewers out there, we always have like a little prep talk with our participants on our YouTube channel. So we are so excited today to have Kristin join us, not only for the fact that we work very closely with the Teamsters Cannabis Division and Kristin. We've spoken at previous events together, whether it was a biotech event or an advocacy event. We were actually in a short film for Lehigh Valley. And so
right.
Yeah, we have a long relationship. So not only do I consider Kristin a colleague of ours, but a dear friend, especially since, my dad was a Teamster for the Turnpike. So that's how we connected initially, was because of my pop. So that was his gimme from the afterlife. Whether or not you believe it, hey, that's what I believe. So, so Kristin, why don't we talk not only about what the Teamsters are doing, but also what you've been seeing as far as advancements. You've been in your role 15 years. That's a long time to be in this role, especially in this, and fortunately you're in California. So the space, at least from a medical standpoint, it was passed in 1996.
Right.
So you were in a good spot to be in, rather than, Pennsylvania, that's only been around for a year now from a program standpoint. So we're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much
for joining us. And why don't you tell us what you're doing?
So I have to clarify that I have been a Teamster for 15 years, but I operated in different capacities, assisting everyone from truck drivers and, liquor truck drivers. But as you know, in California, we did have legal medical cannabis, but we didn't have any regulations. And so we have a lobbyist here in Sacramento by the name of Barry Broad, who was really instrumental in pushing for sensible regulations that governed medical cannabis. And so we really got on the ground on the legislative level. And also we knew that this was going to be an industry that had so many workers, and not just workers, but workers that are used to being underrepresented. They're used to not having those kinds of protections. They're used to if someone robs them or if someone abandons them out in the middle of a farm and they can't get out because they don't have any money and they're not being paid, who would they call? Right. There was no place for them to call. So initially what we started was really working to ensure that we had labor peace here in California for all of the cannabis operators. So we, and that's been, so I've been operating in at least the cannabis capacity for the last 3 years. I do want to say Barry's been in it, a little bit longer. He's since retired, but the groundwork's been laid. And a lot of what my team and I did was we really worked throughout the different cities and counties in California, pushing for more labor peace to make it stronger. So as you know, a lot of these companies, our labor peace requirement calls for, at least at the state legislative level, for 20 or more employees. But some of these places are small. Some of them are mom and pop operations. And in my heart of hearts, I care so much about the smaller operators. And I want to see them survive, and I want to see them do well and be able to have a part of this industry that really, at the end of the day, they created. It's on the backs of those people. And so, so we pushed also to have, smaller numbers of workers for LPA requirements. So lobbying, advocacy work, planning commission meetings, city council, board of supervisors, trying to change the narrative, trying to educate people. And at the end of the day, really kind of what I'm seeing now is really assisting the workers, which at the end of the day, that's what Teamsters do. So we really care about that worker having representation and being able to, you know, unfortunately, and Christina can attest to this because she has seen a number of my posts about workers that are mistreated, but people are fired without just cause. They have nowhere to turn to, and that has to change.
And back pay, you know,
back
with back pay that I've seen, as well as the issues of people getting requests to receive cannabis as a form of payment when that is not, that's not it. You know, you don't get paid by cannabis. You can't pay PG&E, right? You're PG&E in California. I'm trying to recall.
You can't pay your bills with
you can't
flour.
pay your bills with flour.
Right.
And
no, and I've been to farms where trimmers have not been paid and they're very angry, but they can't actually get off the land. And I'm not saying that all of the operators are bad operators. I have had business owners that I've sat down with and they have flat out said to me, you can't talk to my workers. And I said, oh, okay. You know, and I said, why is that? And he said, well, they're all idiots and they don't need a union.
Oh, no.
And I thought, this is the first guy we should knock down, because if you think that of your employees, then I can only imagine what actually happens behind closed doors. And one thing that I always tell people, and I stand behind this, if you're going to block a union from coming in, any union, if you're going to block a union, you're one of the shady people in this industry because you're hiding something. So if you're going to let your workers unionize, which is a right they should have, and have that representation, we can bring to the table great healthcare costs, which Christine, I know you want to talk about. Pension, you know, and you know, holiday pay. And I was just at a dispensary the other day, and they said, you know, and they have a fantastic employer. And she said, come in and talk to my workers. I just want them to know what you guys are doing. And we went in there and we sat down, and they said, we're open 365 days a year. So we don't really need. We don't really want, some of our biggest days are the holidays. And we said, well, great. So you could take these 12 days, you can spend them on any day you want. You want to take your birthday off. You want to take, you know, and so there's different things that I think the Teamsters can bring to the table that
what about overtime?
I'm sorry.
What about overtime pay for these folks? I'm sure, like the Turnpike, you know, my dad, and you know this, you guys, but for the viewers out there that don't know how this works, for when he worked holidays, he got double time when he worked holidays. And if he was plowing, because he had to plow around the clock, because we live in Pennsylvania where it snows all the friggin' time, and the winter and the spring and the fall. I mean, we have snow all the time here. I don't know where the hell we're living, but it sucks. And
move to California.
But like, you know, he worked more than 8 hour shifts. He got paid for his, you know, his extra time. And they had negotiated a sweet deal with the Turnpike that they had extra comp go into their pensions when they worked overtime. So that way, my dad, you know, one of the things that he was very strategic about was making sure that he negotiated that right in the contract with the Turnpike on behalf of his Teamster members, so that they had extra money saving for their retirement. So when they retired, they had a little bit of a bump in there. These are the things, you know.
You know, and the other thing that I think that I come across a lot is, and I understand this because I actually, and Christine, you know this, I came from biotech technology background. I wasn't a Teamster for a long time. It obviously hasn't been horrible because it's been 15 years and I love it. And I love the organization that I work for. And I enjoy actually being part of this brotherhood and sisterhood. You know, but people don't really understand what collective bargaining means. And that means that when you walk in and you sit down with a boss and you're either left by yourself trying to negotiate what you're going to be paid, or you can walk in with a group and collectively bargain for what you feel you're worth. And I just think that that's something that a lot of people, they don't understand what unions do. It's changing. The fabric of what we do is changing. In the time I've been a Teamster, I've watched the freight industry take on some serious hits. Dairy's totally different. And so, you know, at the end of the day, I do see the value in that for the cannabis industry and these workers that are going to be coming on and need to have an understanding of what their rights are.
And how about, let's talk a little bit. Sorry, Wayne, I'm jumping in on your show.
Right.
This is just, I'm excited to talk about this stuff, and I'm excited for every one of our guests. I don't want our past guests to be offended. But this is my thread of my growing up, right? This stuff. So I get a little excited about, about this stuff.
It's your wheelhouse.
That's right. And that's what makes us who we are today. And to mention also, one of the reasons why we had Kristin on the show, specifically this month, was because it is Women's History Month. And you guys have noticed that we make sure we celebrate all the various things. We just started this. But every video that we shoot for our YouTube, we usually have something to discuss that's relative to what, is going on in the world today. But one of the things I wanted to mention, and I don't think all the viewers probably know this, is the insurance, the self-fund insurance, the way this insurance works, why the Teamsters are so concerned about the opiate problem. We still have a major problem with that, folks. Do you mind talking a little bit about that? Because I think that's important.
We do have a specific group that is head up by a woman by the name of Karen Zelenko, who I know I've connected you to.
She's
Karen's
fantastic.
And Karen does a whole lot of work really reaching out to the companies. Wow. The companies that we have.
Must have been a good video.
Good
YouTube video. That's right.
Who would
We're
be
watching
us
us
without someone screaming in the background? But we've reached out to our partners that are actually under a Teamster contract, places like McKesson and AmerisourceBergen, who are in fact responsible for putting some of those drugs on the ground, and demanded change at various different levels, asking that the board is separate from the CEO so that there's some oversight, and those things are I think really important. But you're right, we do have various health plans that are not only affordable, but they're fantastic health plans.
Oh yeah.
And
oh my.
that was
Especially,
one thing we
God
talked
forbid,
about the other day, was covering cannabis, because some people, they use cannabis as a, they don't want to, they don't want to use an antidepressant. They don't want to use, they're using, and as you well know, if you walk in to grab, say, a CBD tincture, and if you're going to grab one that you trust and that you like, you're not going to bat an eye at spending $80 on that tincture.
Right.
So depending on how much you're using that, that can add up. So these are all changes that, obviously as the nation kind of rolls through, and now that we've got people in DC talking about some of the federal changes that are taking place and what the Farm Bill is doing and what we can and can't do. We have a lot of change on the horizon. And I'm hoping that includes covering cannabis as a medicine.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I know, like, for us locally here in the Philadelphia area, we have Blue Cross Blue Shield, right? That's one of our biggest insurance providers. They have huge offices downtown Philly. And one of the things they released at Christmas time was that they are going to allow payment for acupuncture now for pain management.
Wow.
That's huge for Philly, you know?
Yeah.
That is really, really big for Philadelphia to be able to, and Pennsylvania. California, no one would think differently, right? Because California is very progressive. But it's nice to see the East Coast, they're now starting to kind of be quick on this, that, opiates are going to kill us. They don't want to pay for all the effects that occur from an opiate problem, these insurance companies.
No.
Not to mention
this was about people getting rich. This was about people getting rich. And so
unfortunately.
And, I think that those people are really being called out now. So hopefully that's going to change.
Purdue filed Chapter 11, or wants to file Chapter 11, which, they have $268 billion or something around there, billions of dollars from lawsuits that they have to pay out from a damage perspective.
Time to pay the piper.
Hey
Yeah.
guys, Alexa reminded us on our 15 minutes, so we'll try to wrap it up here. And I just activated her again. But real quick, I wanted to try to sneak a couple comments in here. I know it's really exciting, as Christina's dad, a former Teamster lifer, my dad, a former Teamster lifer. I'm a former
Nice.
Teamster, and
Love
I
it.
can tell you, Kristen, that my health insurance personally.
Yeah.
And my wife works in healthcare. I've worked in healthcare for the past
Yeah.
20 years.
Yeah.
My healthcare has not been as good as it has been since Teamsters. When I was with
Absolutely.
UPS and I was a Teamster and my healthcare was
Yes.
solid.
Yes.
Since then, it's horrible. I
Well,
mean, we're talking 20 years.
I have to tell you too, because, the one thing that I love about my organization is, it's not like we pull people from the outside. I mean, we really are a ground up type organization.
Right.
Meaning, if you pay your dues, no pun intended, and you work and you hustle and you work
Right.
hard, then you have more opportunities open up to you. So when I started working at the Teamsters, I was handling accounts for a local
Wow.
in town. And so I would see doctors' wives come
Mm.
in to sort packages at UPS because the healthcare was so phenomenal, and because even as a
Yeah.
part-timer, they had access to that entire
Oh,
package.
it
So
was
there's something to
great.
be said for, having affordable healthcare that is fantastic. And
Mm.
my daughter, who was severely premature, I was 24 weeks when I had her. By the
Wow.
time that little thing got out of the neonatal intensive care unit, it was just under $1 million, and
Oh
I
my
paid
goodness.
I paid 5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Oh, I know.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you, when my dad got diagnosed with all those cancers, and the liver cancer was the worst one, the only pill that he could take was this pill that was $30,000
Oh,
a
God.
month. So
Jesus.
$1,000 a
That's
day.
terrible.
This
No.
pill, this chemo pill cost. Now, not only was it 30K, but they also, the type of cancer, liver cancer he had, was just a subpopulation. So like an orphan status, like only 10% of the world population has this form of liver cancer.
Oh.
So, with my clinical background, I'm like,
Mm.
do you have any data on this small percentage to see if this will work
Yeah.
before
Of
you
course.
even push this envelope?
That's
And
right.
That's one. And two, did you call my dad's insurance proactively to see
Of
if this would
course
be
not.
covered? And they go, that would be a negative. That would be a negative. So now I'm pissed. Oops, I'm not supposed
Uh-huh.
to curse.
Oops.
Now I'm mad.
This is a family show.
That's right.
And-
Come on, clean it up, Christina. Jeez.
Sorry.
Bruce, I'm sorry about that. Bruce is in the booth telling us to wrap it up since you're getting Val. Okay, Bruce, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
Bruce. Sorry, Bruce.
Sorry, Bruce. Sorry. Maya culpa.
We should have a redo anyway, because
Yeah.
my kid was screaming in the background.
That's what makes this channel fun.
The
It's
reason
good
why I'm
fun.
bringing
It's
this up
fun.
is he only had to pay $100. That's what he ended up paying at the end of the day, not $30,000.
You're right.
And for a cancer patient to hear, hey, we have this pill, but
You're
it
right.
might cost you $30,000. Have you lost your mind? Why
Yeah.
would you tell a man who's dying of cancer at 62 that this might be it, and it might cost you 30K?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
You're right.
horrible. It's
Yeah.
terrible. Anyway, real quick, like I mentioned prior to our call, I have a number of Teamster brothers that are still, working in the space. I've been out for 20 years. In fact, when I worked at UPS, I actually used their tuition assistance program to go to school to become a healthcare IT professional. So I was
Thank
one of the
goodness for
probably,
that.
yeah, so probably one of the first, tuition assistance folks to move through that program. But anyway, so I want you to share, Kristen, with my Teamster brothers that may be listening, what is the position, that Teamsters have, on medical cannabis? If you would, just take a minute.
Sure.
Thank
So
you.
they are support. I mean, I wouldn't be able to operate, obviously, or do any of the things that I do without this organization behind me. So
Right.
I've got full support of our general president, Hoffa, and the people at the international. And so the Teamsters want to see good paying jobs for a workforce that's coming
Yeah.
out. This is the ground level. this is preliminary. You know, this is just kind of starting. And like I said before, you know, we're in the middle of education, right?
Yeah,
You know, really
it's really
educating
about,
people
yeah,
what
yep,
their rights are and what the Teamsters can bring to the table. So I wouldn't be able to, they, you know, obviously, you know, but they support what I do. They support
right,
the industry because otherwise they would not, you know, I wouldn't even be operating.
right. Very
Right.
So
good. I
yeah.
appreciate
So
that.
and then, you know, in addition to that, you know, along the same lines as the education piece is really helping people understand that we're not advocating for people to use cannabis and drive a truck.
Right.
Right.
No.
We are advocating for an industry that has workers that need representation, and also
Hmm.
we fight for people who need to use cannabis when they go home at night because they're in pain, and
There's
because
Right.
cannabis stays in your system, unlike
Hmm.
alcohol, right? The next
Right.
morning,
Right.
then you know you really need to add some of those protections in places like the contracts, so that
Absolutely.
someone can't, you know, be tested and then fired or suspected,
Hmm.
you know. So those are all things that we're actively looking at.
That's good information. I appreciate you sharing that with us, you know, because like I said, I do have some friends still that work, you know, at work at UPS, still Teamster brothers, and
Yeah,
I can tell you honestly, or, you know, that they're not for medical cannabis or cannabis in general.
that's
So,
right.
you know, and as we were talking about, you know, it's really about education, you know, and the meaning behind this channel, why we all get together and have some fun and joke around and talk a little bit.
Yeah,
And so it's really about educating folks.
it is.
Um, Anything else you would like to share before I have Christina take us out of here?
Go for it, Christina. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been a blast.
Great.
Oh,
All right.
thank
Very
you.
good.
All right, CDP, do
Thank
what
you.
you do.
Yeah, because Bruce is poking. I could see Bruce
He
poking him.
is.
Um,
Yep.
we love Bruce. He does all kinds of things. You know, don't be surprised if you see on our Instagram someone named Bruce
He'll
responding
reply
to
to most
people.
things.
He
Yeah.
works for us, all the companies. We love him. He's a
Nice.
big advocate.
You're all right, Bruce.
Yeah, he's fantastic. So I wanted to thank you so much for coming on today, Kristen. It's just such a pleasure to have you on, and
It
so that
is,
you could
really.
talk and help educate people. And if they have questions, you know, we have other unions now that have been contacting us because they want to talk to us because they know we're research based. We have our bot, we have a patient advocacy arm. So they figured it out. And I think it's because of what we do with you, um, you know, which is awesome.
Nothing like a good union controversy, right?
Yeah, right. I
Let's get
just want to, you
some
know, the
con-
thing is, we all want to help people, right? At the
Yep.
end of the day,
Yeah.
that's why we're all here. And
Absolutely.
I think that's why it works so well, you know,
I
because
agree.
when we when we were speaking one time at a conference, Kristen and I said, you know, that we work closely with the Teamsters. The Teamsters have endorsed our companies because, you know, they know we're doing things by the book from a research standpoint, et cetera. And the surprise on the biotech and pharma people that were there in the room, it was funny as it was just so funny. I won't say what I would normally say because Bruce will hit up again with his finger. And I'm afraid
He's
of
got to
Bruce.
get quick
There
on
are
that
definitely
mute button.
some jaws dropped. I think people have a hard time connecting cannabis to Teamsters, but it's okay.
Right.
Absolutely.
We're here. We're here.
Right.
And I'm patient. I'm not going anywhere. We've
Right.
been around for 103 years. We're not leaving.
Right on.
And you know, I always wear my Teamster pin for every cannabis function. Tonight I'll be at the Lieutenant Governor's event. I'll be wearing my Teamster pin. Today I have my Teamster shirt on. Hopefully you can see it.
Love the support.
Kristen branded the Teamster Cannabis Division herself. This was her baby.
Nice.
And it's growing into now she's at a toddler stage, you know, so this is fantastic. It's going to go. It's going to go. And before you know it, we'll be talking about the 12-year-old that it matured into.
Yes, we will.
Exactly.
Yes, we
Exactly. Yes. Side
All
by
right.
side with you. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Awesome stuff today, guys. Great conversation. Kristen, thank you so much for
Thank you,
joining
Ryan.
us. You know, it's been an exciting call. And Christina, till we meet again, you know, I guess tomorrow, I think we're recording somebody else.
Yes. We got to keep it on the train.
All right, everybody. Until next time.
Till
Take
next
care,
time.
Farewell.
Kristin.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.